Hey everybody, Jim here with another top 5 today, and today we're going to be taking a look at my personal top 5 Capcom games for the SNES, which was a pretty tough list to put together because for me, anytime I'm talking about 90s Capcom games, it's hard to pick favorites because Capcom, probably my favorite developer of the 90s, the stuff they were putting out then, was kind of like my 90s gaming aesthetics perfectly realized. All of the action games they were putting out and the fighting games, and eventually, getting into survival horror with Resident Evil, all the stuff they were putting out during that time, 16-bit and 32-bit, some of my favorite games of all time. And so anytime I'm trying to pick little individual games amongst them, it's going to be kind of tough, but I did my best. So I compiled a list of my top 5. First, though, some honorable mentions. First up, Breath of Fire 2, which I really enjoyed, both this and the first game. But at this point, I had already played pretty much all the best JRPGs on the console. Your Final Fantasies, Chrono Trigger, the Dragon Quest games, Secret of Mana. And loved all those games. So by the time I got around to the Breath of Fire games, I was a little burnt out on JRPGs, I guess. So I did still really enjoy this game. Great game, beautiful graphics, sound design, gameplay is fun, although pretty damn difficult as far as JRPGs go. Great game, and just narrowly missing the list because I have a whole lot of JRPGs that I put ahead of it. Also, Final Fight 3, and really you can lump in the entire Final Fight series, and all the beat-em-ups, really, that Capcom put out on the SNES, Captain Commando, and Knights of the Round, King of Dragons, all these games are just amazing. Final Fight 3 in particular, though, I have a lot of fun with, whether you're playing 2 players or with a CPU assistant, and I just like that they really improved the series with this game. You can dash and do dashing attacks and dashing combos, special moves, super combos, all that kind of stuff. Really a great evolution for the Final Fight games, which were already just absolute classic beat-em-ups. And Super Ghouls and Ghosts will be the final honorable mention, just narrowly missing the list. This is one of those almost perfect, like, kind of action platformers from that time. I like that Capcom didn't just make a port of Ghouls and Ghosts. They made this its own unique game. Incredible graphics, incredible sound. The gameplay, extremely challenging, but also very fun. But definitely, I would say, more fair and less frustrating than the NES game. It's hard to pick between this and the Genesis game. I tend to go with this one, but they're both totally amazing. So yeah, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, one of the best action platformers on the SNES. And with the honorable mentions out of the way, let's get to this list proper. And my number 5 Capcom game on the SNES is UN Squadron, which I'm a huge shoot-'em-up fan, and my favorites on the console are definitely Gradius 3, R-Type 3, and Space Megaforce. That's kind of like my holy trinity of SNES shooters. But this game sets itself apart with all of the various options that you have in it. It's a solid shoot-'em-up on its own, but you have multiple characters to choose from, and with each character you can buy a whole bunch of different jets. I like that by completing missions, you earn money, and some of the missions are kind of like critical, so if you finish them, the map expands and you move on and you complete more of the story. But a bunch of them you can just do over and over and over again, like the bombing runs and things like that. Get some money, and then stock up on new planes and new weapons. All the different planes have access to different weapon loads, so each one has its own merits. And it's fantastic. So you have lots of different options, so it's not just a straightforward shoot 'em up, which honestly I really don't mind. Like I said, the other games that are my favorites, those are really straightforward. Not a whole lot of different options for how to upgrade your ships and all that kind of stuff. You get all those power-ups in the game. Here, getting the money, buying the different ships, buying all the different weapons. I like that aspect of it. It makes it, for me, more than just a straight shoot 'em up. It does something to set itself apart, which I like a lot. Again, on top of it just being a pretty solid shooter and very fun with really great graphics and a nice soundtrack as well. And I do like that all the in-game graphics are very faithful to the manga, which is very cool. Playing this game, all those years ago, didn't know it was based on Area 88. I didn't learn that until actually maybe like less than 10 years ago. Came to Japan, picked it up in a hard off, and I was like, oh, holy crap, I know this game. And now, yeah, since then I've had a chance to read some Area 88 manga, and they're pretty damn cool. And so my appreciation just grows and grows for this game. But anyway, Area 88, UN Squadron, fantastic shoot 'em up on the SNES. Great graphics and sound, really fun gameplay, and really diverse gameplay. Make it one of my favorite shooters on the SNES, and it's number 5 on my top 5 Capcom SNES games. For number 4, I decided to go with the game that knocked Super Ghouls and Ghosts off the list, and that is Demon's Crest, otherwise known as Demon's Blazon. This game is just fantastic. Again, kind of like how UN Squadron is a shooter, but it's more than just a shooter. This is an action platformer that's way more than just an action platformer. I love that you have this overworld map and all the different stages you can go to and explore, and as you unlock different forms for Firebrand that can do different things like, you know, fly or go underwater or better platforming and more powerful attacks. As you're unlocking all these different forms for him, you can go and revisit other areas of the game, and you can find items you couldn't get to before and boss battles you couldn't get to before. This was one of my first games playing where it wasn't just like straightforward action platforming. I had played lots of like Mega Mans and Castlevanias and Ninja Gaidens, just point A to point B. But games like this and ActRaiser and ActRaiser 2, these were some of my first experiences with games that really made me have to like think like, what am I doing here and where do I go next? And the first games that made me like backtrack and really like start to explore a lot more than just, you know, run from point A to point B and kill everything in between. So I really love this game for that. It's a fantastic action platformer with all of those other cool elements stacked on top of it. And I mean, good lord, the graphics in this game are beautiful. I love the really cool gothic scenery. This game to me really sets itself apart from the Ghouls and Ghosts game. Those have a much more comical tone. This one has a much more, again, like gothic, kind of more serious tone to it, which I liked a lot. The graphics are amazing, love the character designs, all the monsters. The soundtrack is fantastic. Everything about this game is just top-notch. Really one of the best action platforming games on the console. And if you've never played Demon's Crest, you're doing yourself a great disservice. Go and play it. You'll be glad you did. It's number 4 on my SNES Capcom games list. For number 3, this might surprise some people, but X-Men Mutant Apocalypse. This is one of my favorite side-scrolling action games ever. And again, kind of like the previous 2 games, it's essentially a beat-em-up, but it's so much more than that. First off, I was a huge X-Men fan at the time this game came out, so this was just like perfect for me. On top of being a Capcom fan at the time, loving Mega Man and Street Fighter and, again, Demon's Crest and Final Fight, all that stuff, when Capcom and X-Men came together, that was just perfect for me. It had my 2 favorite characters in it, obviously, Wolverine and Gambit, so I was already just in love with the game just for that. Didn't have a Genesis, so I didn't really have a lot of experience with the X-Men Genesis games. But now, as an adult, I can say I love this game. I think it blows the Genesis games out of the water. It's kind of like my personal perfect action game. Again, a beat-em-up, but so much more. Kind of a beat-em-up platformer hybrid. Each character is unique from the others. They all have their own special abilities. So, you know, Beast, he's like super strong, but he can also cling to ceilings and walk around. Wolverine can cling to the walls, and his attacks are just like totally insane. Gambit, more maneuverable, and his cards are very versatile. Psylocke, super fast and agile. She's the best character for platforming. And then Cyclops is there, and he just kills everything with his optic blast, so he's a lot of fun to play too. So this game, gameplay-wise, yeah, again, kind of like my perfect fit for an action game. I can run through this game in about 40 minutes. I probably play through this game several times a year, just sitting around bored. I'm like, what am I going to do? I got about an hour to kill. Yeah, hell with it. Let's play X-Men Mutant Apocalypse again. So, despite the fact that it's a short game, fairly simple action title, I still never get tired of it for whatever reason. I just find it has this perfect balance for me. And of course, you can't go wrong with those graphics. They're fantastic. All the characters look great. All of the playable characters, plus all the villains like Apocalypse, Magneto, Juggernaut, Omega Red, Exodus and Tusk and all of the Sentinel boss characters. Really big detailed sprites, really great looking stages, and a soundtrack that just blew my balls off at the time. They might not still be intact. Each time I play this game, the soundtrack just goes, hey, here, give me your balls. Blam! Blows them off. So this game, kind of one of my just perfect action titles. I can play at any time, and it's the perfect mix of Capcom gameplay aesthetics and licensing with the X-Men. Just an amazing game. X-Men Mutant Apocalypse, number 3 on my list of top 5 Capcom games for the SNES. For number 2, one of my favorite games of all time, really, it's pretty obvious, Street Fighter II. And you can put pretty much any iteration of Street Fighter II here, either the World Warrior, Turbo, or Super Street Fighter II. I mean, take your pick. They're all amazing, but Street Fighter II I had an absolute obsession with when I was a kid. Played the arcade cabinet in my aunt and uncle's convenience store when I was 6 years old, and after that it was like, I don't know, I was just hooked. It was instantly one of my absolute favorite games of all time. I was never gonna not be a Street Fighter fan. I was already a huge fan of like martial arts movies. I would just sit behind the counter and watch the American Ninja movies and all of, Van Damme's canon movies, so I just liked to watch big muscly men punch each other, and hey, Street Fighter, there you go. Lots and lots of muscly men and women punching and kicking each other all over the place, so perfect game for me, but just the game that made me like 2D, like's not a strong enough word, love. The game that made me love 2D fighting games, it was right here, the original Street Fighter 2, played it to death, to hell and back. And then when Super Street Fighter 2 came out, I was like enamored with it. I was like, you mean Street Fighter 2? But there's like more characters in it. So immediately I was right away drawn to Fei Long and Cammy. I just thought they were like super cool. Great additions to the roster. But really any iteration of Street Fighter 2, I don't have to say anything about it. It's Street Fighter 2. I'm pretty sure everybody already knows. One of the best games ever made. Very, very important in terms of the history of video games in general, and definitely of fighting games. If it wasn't for this game, there probably a whole lot of stuff that came afterwards never would have existed. This game kind of brought arcades back, at least in North America at the time. And yeah, it's a game that I've loved almost my entire life, and I love it to this day. Still take it off the shelf to play it every once in a while. And yeah, it's just a game that will never get old, and it'll always have a place in my heart until I get Alzheimer's, I guess, and forget all about it. Until then, Street Fighter 2, it'll always be in my mind, in my heart, one of the best games ever made, and it's number 2, oddly enough, on my Capcom SNES games list. And my number 1 Capcom game for the SNES, there are really no other options at this point, it is Mega Man X. And this is actually tied with 2 other games for my favorite game on the SNES. Those other games being Castlevania 4 and Zelda: Link to the Past, which puts it high in the running for my favorite game of all time. When I talk about like perfect action games, like this is it right here for me. This at the time when I first played this game, my only experience with Mega Man games were Mega Man 2 and Mega Man 3. Which I still love to this day, but going from those games to this was just like this immense evolution, this huge leap. And like I said about earlier games in the list, it was this action title, it was this thing I was familiar with, but there was so much more added to it. You're playing Mega Man, but I mean you're dashing around, you're finding these capsules, you're getting all these like super powered up weapons, the graphics and sound, it was just like, it was... I couldn't describe the feeling I had playing it for the first time. I think I was like maybe 7 years old the first time I played this game, and it was akin to like a religious experience. I can say that for the other SNES games too, Zelda and Castlevania, playing all these games just, super powered, as the commercial would say. But this game, gameplay and controls, perfect. Graphics, characters, everything just amazing, beautiful game. I still love to just, sit and appreciate the visuals to this day. And the soundtrack, one of the best soundtracks in video game history. A lot of those songs are just like burned into my mind. I can never forget them. So this is a game that, more than a game for me, it was like an experience. It was like, I don't know, something like a memory that will never, ever fade away. Hopefully that fateful day, me and my brother, he's having a sleepover with all his friends. One of them has a copy of Mega Man X. We had just gotten our Super Nintendo that Christmas, and really all we had for it was Mario. And so we had some friends come over, they brought some games with them, and we were huge Mega Man fans. So when they whipped out Mega Man X, we were like, holy hell, there's a Mega Man X? What is this? And then, I don't know, it's all just this, like, blur. Just everything went white, and then I was overwhelmed by the absolute awesomeness of this game. So again, yeah, for me, just perfect action game. Nothing at all to complain about. Perfect gameplay, perfect visuals, perfect soundtrack. The story was great as well. Kind of a side note, the story was fantastic. But yeah, Mega Man X, my #1 favorite Capcom game on the SNES, and one of my all-time favorite games in general. And that's going to do it, everybody. Those are my top 5 Capcom games on the SNES. Again, it wasn't easy to order them, especially 1 and 2, because Street Fighter 2, very important game to me. Mega Man X, very important game to me. So yeah, not always easy to order these games, especially when you've been playing them for so long, you're so familiar with them, and they're kind of like written into your DNA at this point. Now you gotta like pick it's almost like picking like what's better, like seeing or hearing. Like what's better, Street Fighter or Mega Man? I don't know, would I rather be deaf or blind? But that's it, so I hope you enjoyed watching. Let me know down in the comments what your favorites are, your favorite Capcom games on the SNES. I would like to know. And did anything on my list surprise you, or did you think I'm a total lunatic for leaving something off of this list? I'd like to know that too. Anyways, everybody, until next time, thank you so much for watching, subscribing, liking, commenting, blah blah blah. You know, the end of the YouTube video stuff that, you know, everybody says. I'm saying that to you right now. Thanks for watching, everybody. Greatly appreciated. And until next time, take care, and I will see you then. Goodbye.